Next on Arizona 360, what the headlines miss about everyday life in Arizona's borderlands.
They think that the hills are teeming with MS-13 members.
For us, it is a real and daily problem.
Homeland Security's new approach to prosecuting immigrants.
The lawlessness has to end.
We're talking about living, breathing human beings.
And the difficulties of border enforcement in southern Arizona.
In certain areas, we have to insert them by helicopters because there's no roads.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us. This week we're in Nogales to get a deeper look at some of the border-related issues that continue to capture national attention. On the heels of a visit from Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, we wanted to get a better sense of what everyday life looks like for people whose livelihoods are rooted in this region. We assembled a panel that included ranchers, businessmen and women, and community leaders in Santa Cruz and Pima counties. Our discussion picks up at the historic Low House in Tubac. You all represent various parts of Santa Cruz County, and I want to begin with a question for each and every one of you. How fair is the representation that you, as residents of Santa Cruz County, that you get in the press?
I don't think that we get a very fair representation from the media to Santa Cruz County. I work for the Nogales Chamber of Commerce, and I also represent the Tourism Center. And I can tell you that I feel very safe in Nogales a lot of the times. I get a lot of compliments from tourists, from international visitors, that they love the way that we live here.
When you talk about Nogales, you should be talking about international trade. You should be talking about billions of dollars worth of commerce. And that is very hard for us to get recognition from the federal government that that's happening in our community. If you just look at our customs staffing, we're at a 30% deficiency in our port of entry. And that is affecting businesses, small family businesses, and it's affecting county and city sales tax revenue. It's affecting county property tax revenue. It's a really, really bad, those are really bad situations. So when we get high-level people into our community, it's really good for them to see that the Deacon Port of Entry is deficient and it needs to be redone. It's really good for them to see the Mariposa Port of Entry, which was a huge community effort to get that built and what that's meant to our community.
When the National Guard was coming to Santa Cruz County, okay, the media was presented it like if it was something really negative. If you would have asked, people from the community, they would have said, you know what, it's something positive. We were very happy that they were here because we know that it's going to be a secure community. But at the same time, they could be our ambassadors to go ahead and bring their families or relocate, like right now with the U.S. Customs, that we need more officers in our ports. That would be something good.
First of all, I love living in Santa Cruz County. I think Santa Cruz County is a great place to be. Like any county, we have problems, and particularly a border county, we're going to maybe have more acute problems than others. In fact, I was being interviewed for another media program some time ago, and you talked about fairness. And I made that statement, and the moment I made it, I knew that I would be on the cutting room floor because I knew that's not what they wanted to hear. Do we have challenges? Absolutely. Do I think that some of the Border Patrol policies are so parochial and entrenched that they're not open to other solutions? I absolutely do. I think that as a community and a compassionate community, but yet one that obviously will honor protecting the border that we have, I think there's some solutions out there if we can just kind of work together and pull together with it.
I think the farther away you get from the border, the scarier it is here. And for those of us that live here, it's a pretty normal place in most regards. I'll tell you one brief story. I used to live in Detroit, and people would look at me with a mixture of fear and confusion when you said that. They could not believe that you lived in Detroit. And it's very much the same when you tell somebody in Michigan or Iowa that you live near the border. They feel, they think that the hills are teeming with MS-13 members.
Stuart, I met you probably about 15 years ago when I-19 was getting the checkpoint very near your family's property. What is your place like?
We haven't seen anything out of control in Amato at all, not like 15 years ago. And it was getting attention then, but today I think it's insulting that this migration flood is mayhem and that we have all these horrible people flooding us, and there are women and children in need, and we are refusing to do anything compassionately about their situation. We have forgotten the notion that when we help others, we help ourselves.
Sue Chilton and her husband Jim own a ranch in Arivaca that borders Mexico. We featured them last year on Arizona Public Media, and Jim shared his concerns about border security.
People have come through here just trying to get into America to work. Just good people. Problem now, it's drug packers.
Since then, little has changed for the Chiltons.
For us, it is a real and daily problem. We have 5.5 miles of the border as our southern pasture fence. There is a wall in Nogales, a wall in Sassabee, and 25 miles of 4-strand barbed wire in between. If you lock one door and lock another door and leave the window wide open, just where do you think people come through? It is not, in our case, women and children who are seeking asylum. It is almost exclusively drug packers. The United States makes the magnet for that drug business. We are in no man's land. Call 911 from Arivaca and see what you get. They'll come investigate your murder after it's, you're already cold.
The conversation then turned to border enforcement, whether or not current strategies used by the Border Patrol are effective, and the impact of the agency's checkpoint along Interstate 19 just north of Tubac.
That I-19 checkpoint and all of the related infrastructure is the first thing. It's the gateway to our communities. It forms the first impression. So we live north of an official international border, and then we live just south of an artificial border. And it's people don't understand what it's like to have that in your community and have it between you and your daily activities.
And as a business person in this community, that's really hurt. There used to be a lot of tour buses that would come down from foreign, people from foreign countries would come to Tubac because it's the place where art and history meet.
The first comment that a national visitor that comes to the border, they ask you, is it safe to be in Nogales? But if you go into Canadians or international, they don't bother about that. So it's very, you see the difference between the two tourism coming to the area.
But the lion's share of the people that we see walking through our communities are not drug smugglers. Can we agree on that?
Not down here, or not in the corridor.
Not
here.
in this corridor. There are people who are looking for a way for a better life.
Well,
in Sue's area,
You're not in the corridor, Sue.
there's 20 miles between Arivaca Road that runs through the town and the border. But Arivaca Road is the de facto U.S.-Mexico boundary in that area. Secondly, the road from Arivaca down south to the border is a very slow road. It's about 20 miles from our house to the border, and it takes about an hour and a half. Next thing, if you hear, it's too rugged to build that border road that parallels the area. It's too difficult to put up any kind of interdiction or have a forward operating base. No, it's not. Anybody ever been to a ski resort? You know what American civil engineers are capable of doing?
Wow, it's great to see a nice turnout. It is. And I want to say welcome, Secretary Nielsen. Thank you.
Gary, you got to sit down with Secretary Nielsen. She get it? Does she understand what's happening down there?
One of the things that was poignant to me, and of course this is just really down in the weeds, but is that when you spoke, she was taking notes. She was actually considering what it was that was being said. Now, whether she can agree with it or whether she can do anything about it, I don't know, but at least I felt like she wasn't just sitting there waiting for a photo op. She was writing things down, coming back and asking questions, maybe being challenging in some cases and saying, okay, Gary, you presented a great concern. What's the solution to that?
This is one of the first times that you've had the head of Homeland Security come to Nogales and actually engage local people. And that was a huge step forward. But what's happening with business people and the billions of dollars of trade that are happening, they also need to understand that. They also need that they have to facilitate that, or it goes away. It goes away to California, it goes away to Texas, or it just plain goes away to another country.
We'll pick up that conversation a bit later, but first, more about Secretary Nielsen's recent visit to the border, where she spoke about cracking down on illegal immigration. That same day, Democratic Congressman Raul Grijalva traveled to Nogales, Sonora, to meet with families seeking asylum at the port of entry. Both had very different messages about what's at stake. After his visit, Congressman Grijalva came to our studios for an interview. You actually, as a sitting congressman, crossed the border and went to speak with some of these families. Yes. Why do that? What's the value in that?
I think it's important to, even if it's just me or it's others, to humanize this issue, to let the American people know we're not talking about objects or just some statistical number. We're talking about living, breathing human beings, children that are here in the most desperate of situations, turning themselves in with the hope, not the guarantee, that they would be granted asylum and save themselves from a worse fate in the country of origin that they came from.
The number of immigrant families that we're seeing coming through the U.S. ports of entry requesting asylum, at this point dozens if not hundreds. Is this a crisis?
If we don't act on it and follow the law, it can become a crisis where you have a backlog that isn't dealt with, where you have people that are voluntarily turning themselves in, following the law and saying, I want an opportunity to go through the process to state my case for credible fear. We forget that we're following a process here that has existed for decades upon decades in this country, and that if we have full capacity of staffing and that we make independent assessments about credible fear, then many of these are going to qualify, no doubt about it. Some won't, but they're not asking for a guarantee. They're asking to be part of that process.
In Nogales, Arizona, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen did say the border is in crisis. She said her agency plans to refer all southwest border crossings for prosecution, with no exceptions for families with children.
It appears our critics want a two-tier legal system. They think illegal aliens should get different, perhaps better treatment than U.S. citizens because they happen to be illegal aliens. No jail if they have a family, no critical consequences if they have children. I'm here today to tell you differently. If you smuggle illegal aliens across our border, we will prosecute you. If you cross the border illegally, we will prosecute you. And if you make a false immigration claim, we will prosecute you. The lawlessness has to end.
Secretary Nielsen clarified that children separated from their parents would go into the custody of Health and Human Services. Congressman Grijalva objected to the strategy.
Even if you don't agree with the whole idea of accepting these refugees, the thought of ripping children out of the arms of their moms is offensive and repugnant to everybody. The fact remains that we dehumanize these people and their kids if we make this all about enforcement only.
The number of family units apprehended by agents in Arizona saw a sharp increase this fiscal year compared to 2017. In the Tucson sector, apprehensions are up nearly 70% from 1,400 to 2,400. And in the Yuma sector, it doubled from 3,900 to 7,900. As for drugs, agents have seized more than 280 pounds of the opioid fentanyl since October, already outpacing the amount seized for the entire fiscal year in 2017.
This tile was hollowed out.
Congressman Grijalva says stopping the flow of opioids into the U.S. means prioritizing enforcement at the ports.
Let's be realistic here. We're going to talk about saving lives. Let's talk about demand, supply, what the role of our ports of entry are in terms of 88% of all confiscations of illicit drugs, and primarily the components, heroin, and the components for opioids in this country are seized at the ports of entry. So one would think that the logic would be to technology, infrastructure, and finally staff those ports of entry with the way they should be.
Congresswoman Martha McSally, who led Secretary Nielsen's visit to the border, told reporters why she believes the border wall in its entirety needs improving.
As a fighter pilot, I try and look at it like we need to build situational awareness and operational control. Situational awareness means that if there is some sort of breach, whether it be over, through, or under the international boundary or the wall or whatever barrier we have, that it needs to be detected. Same thing coming through the ports of entry, it needs to be detected. So that's working on, again, the barriers, the sensors, the airborne assets, the other technology, and the manpower to be able to detect that. Secondly is operational control. We've got to be able to do something about it. Just because you see it doesn't mean you can get to it to interdict it. And those two things are still not where they need to be to say our southern border is secure.
Congresswoman McSally also touted her bill to boost border security, which authorizes building a wall, adds 5,000 Border Patrol agents, and offers DACA recipients a 3-year renewable status. Congressman Grijalva criticized the bill for not offering so-called dreamers a path to citizenship. It's one of 4 bills the House could potentially debate and vote on. Are you disappointed in Democratic leadership that perhaps wasn't able to push forward a plan that eventually, made everyone happy?
I was very disappointed with the Senate. The opportunity to send us something. The House has been reluctant we're going on 4 years now to do anything, maybe 6. It needed to come from the Senate, and the failure there, and the failure of some Democrats to hang with that issue and be supportive was very disappointing.
You've been in D.C. a long time now. How is the tone different right now?
It's been different for the last 18 months. That there's a frustration among the American people, and I think there's also a desperation. We have to conquer some majorities, either in the House or in the Senate. The Democrats do, to kind of put a check and balance in this administration. If we don't do that, then I think the times will get even more desperate.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
To get a better understanding of the challenges with border enforcement, we spoke to the man in charge of the Tucson sector's 3,600 Border Patrol agents. We began by asking Chief Patrol Agent Rodolfo Karisch how he would describe the 262 miles of border his sector patrols.
Well, I would say it's fragile control, because I think we've made tremendous efforts over the years here in Tucson, but the traffic can definitely come back. If you've looked at the dynamics of the borders over the years, I think the flow of traffic actually goes from one part of the border to the other. Years ago, we had problems in El Paso. That shifted, of course, to California, then to Tucson, then to the Rio Grande Valley. So we always have to be prepared for that, because you do have flow of people that come across, but then also you have a large amount of contraband that comes across these borders, whether it's here in Arizona specifically, or in South Texas or other parts of the country.
Last week, Secretary Nielsen, among the ways she described this sector, chaos, some out of control. Is that a fair representation of your work, or is it something else?
I mean, I think in certain areas, you definitely have more control than you do in others. But we also have vast terrain here in Tucson with 262 miles of borders, from mountaintops that are up as high as 9,000 feet to the desert floors. It makes it difficult to patrol. We also have 19% of the border here where we have no direct access to. So that is the challenge sometimes, is getting eyes on the border, having that situational awareness of what's coming at you across the border.
Recently, Border Patrol agents here in Tucson sector got some help through Operation Guardian. We have National Guard on the border.
Yes.
Can you describe what their role is, their efforts?
But the Guard is here to provide administrative, logistical, air support to us, is to complement our mission. Because I always remind people of this, is that border security is national security. So the President directed DOD is to work closer with us in that mission. Over the years, I've heard, that we're militarizing the border here by having guards. I remind people of this all the time. We have a significant threat that faces this country, and we have to do our part, and everyone has to do their part, is to help solve this issue. This is not the first president who has sent National Guard to the border. We actually had that under President Bush as well as President Obama. So I think any help that we can get down here in making this border safer, it's in our best interest.
What's the strategy behind having headquarters located in Tucson? I mean, earlier you mentioned how expansive this area is, but if you would describe the strategy behind having headquarters in Tucson and then those forward operating bases directly on the line.
Right. Well, first of all, you have to have a command and control element. I mean, we have 8 Border Patrol stations and 1 substation here, so we're kind of that hub in the spokes to where we control all 262 miles through various stations. Tucson sector here provides that support to the stations, and the agents are actually the ones who actually work in the field. But even with those forward operating bases, they support those stations so that agents don't lose time in commuting from a station down to the border. They actually are in that zone as soon as they go to work.
Over the course of the last few weeks, there's been a lot of attention to the individuals seeking asylum. I understand there are a lot of agencies involved when that takes place.
Yes.
Can you tell me what the role of the Border Patrol is when an immigrant comes to one of your agents and requests asylum?
Well, anytime a claim for asylum is made to one of our agents, they're referred to USCIS, which is Immigration Services. They have asylum officers that will actually meet with these folks as to determine whether or not there is a claim. And then there's also another process in the event that they eventually have a hearing before a judge. It goes to the Executive Office of Immigration Review. So they're the ones who actually do it. So once we actually have that claim of fear, they're referred to another office who independently does the fact checks on it to determine whether there is in fact a fear of that person returning to their country of origin. The determination is not on the Border Patrol agencies to make that. That actually goes to an asylum officer.
There is a need for more agents. You're always recruiting.
Yes.
Give me a sense of what it's like out there for an agent.
I mean, let's start off with the terrain. Summers here can be brutal. It can get very cold in the winter, so it's preparing every day to go out there. We have agents on a daily basis who go out into these mountains to patrol out there on foot. In certain areas, we have to insert them by helicopters because there's no roads. So the danger is always going to be there. I always remind people of this. We've lost 127 agents in the history of the Border Patrol nationally doing this job. So very dangerous in the things that we do. But we have a very committed workforce who is energized and want to protect their country by being out there. I'm very proud of the men and women in this organization. But the dangers are very real, whether it's from drugs, from the weapons that flow across the border, whether it's from the criminal aliens that are traveling through. So every day when you go out there, it's the uncertainty of not knowing who you're going to face that day.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay.
Getting back to our panel discussion and the topic of misunderstanding the borderlands, we asked what steps outsiders and insiders can take to help solve some of these issues. How can we fix the border? How can we make it more secure?
You need to have rural people suggest recommendations for rural areas. In our section of the border, you need the Border Patrol present at the border. You need the electronics also, but if it's just telling them what they missed, that's not quite adequate. With the cartel scouts on the mountains, they can spot a Border Patrol vehicle 10 miles away easily.
There's got to be a dialogue like what you're saying, because a lot of times you hear this is an evasive motion of the federal government putting up this wall in my backyard. And like, I'm not up for a wall, but I am up for a lot more representation for her property security.
You have to put the border back in Border Patrol, and that means checkpoints they're empowered to put them up to 100 miles from the border is a misallocation of resources. To me, it's a misallocation of resources to see half a dozen vehicles every time I go to Tucson making the trek back and forth, which blows 2 hours out of every 8-hour shift. And what are they doing up there? I don't get it.
For me, it's not one silver bullet. I don't think there is one answer. I think it's a combination of more secure border we have, more accessible border we have. I think the forward operating bases, from everything I've understood, are very successful. I think more advanced vehicle barriers. I think using technology for virtual fences where maybe physical fences might be very difficult right now or pose environmental problems. I think drone technology. I mean, I just think there's a lot of things that Border Patrol has done or is doing and can do better in some cases.
Those are all defensive moves, though, for the crime. I mean, get in front of it and destigmatize addiction and give people a second chance to a better life and straighten people out. And you do that, you reduce your consumption and you reduce the need for all of this bulking of the border.
I can remember going back 20 years ago, 30 years ago now at this point, sorry, people were saying, our problem is that there's poverty in Mexico and the jobs are in the U.S. and how are we going to stop this? Well, it was very forward thinking to say, well, let's work on creating a middle class in Mexico. Let's do joint manufacturing in Mexico to create that middle class. All of a sudden, the people that are coming over looking for work, not so many Mexicans coming over because there's a labor shortage in Mexico. People that are coming up looking for work are coming from further south. So this concept of bringing other nations up is helping us solve our problems. That was the first wave. I think the next thing is this country really needs to create a guest worker program that works. That's something that allows people, if a rancher in Montana needs one person to go out there and help them, or that person is going to take his wife with him, let him go. Let's create that, because that's going to allow him to keep his ranch. But it's also going to allow this other person who's been living in deep poverty to actually earn a living, an honorable living.
Undocumented leads to trouble. We need to address that problem and address the legal worker problem so that they can come in with documents and they have legal protections.
Well, I'm a firm believer of education, and I think right now by offering better education in schools and the school system, I think it will be much easier with the younger generations to teach them everything about what is going on, what the troubles, and to look for a better future. That would be an answer for me to go ahead and start doing something for the country. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we go, a look at what's ahead. The Tohono O'odham Nation covers areas of Arizona and Mexico and encompasses more than 60 miles of border. Next week on Arizona 360, a tour of the reservation and what tribal leadership says of their relationship with federal partners.
I believe we have an okay relationship. I won't call it great. I believe that there has been some opportunity for the nation to be at the table. I also believe that if we continue to talk to each other, that we can be allies and not divided as enemies. We appreciate all that you do out there, and of course every now and then we run into snags, but
you know, we have a certain responsibility, and you guys have a responsibility. The community has a responsibility, and it's a partnership that certainly I'm proud of there. We have our little bumps here and there, but we continue to communicate and get over those issues, and we've come a long way in a short time there with our federal partners there.
My response to addressing the issues, the border issues that impact the Tohono O'odham Nation is that, number one, America needs to kick its drug habit. When you talk about the front lines, we're here.
And that does it for this week. Thanks so much for joining us here in Nogales. To get a better sense of what we're working on, be sure to follow us on social media. For all of us at Arizona 360, I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us.